Good morning, everyone. You hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Today, I'd like to talk about cultivating pure awareness. During our Dharma service, we recite the essential dharmas of daily practice. This is not merely for the service itself, but it signifies our commitment to using the essential dharmas of daily practice as a standard for our daily spiritual practice. It begins with the first article. The mind ground is free from disturbance, but disturbances arise in response to sensory condition. Let us give rise to the absorption of the self-nature by letting go of those disturbances. So first, let's think about the term mind ground, which means original mind or Buddha nature. We could simply use the term original mind or Buddha nature, but why do we use the term mind ground? I often heard that among English speaking members, it is hard to find the grasp of the meaning mind ground. So sometimes using just mind. But you are not alone. Even for Koreans, 심지, the mind ground term in Korean, is often challenged by for Koreans to understand. But within the term mind ground, the wisdom in it, when we understand it, we understand the principle of the mind. So let's begin by reflecting on what the ground represents. The ground is an inanimate, seemingly passive surface. When you think about it, it might appear just as an empty space we walking upon or lean against. But from this seemingly empty surface, all forms of life, all forms of life arise. The trees, flowers, vegetables, even weeds. These arise from this empty ground. Everything we see, touch, consume has its origin in the earth. In a similar way, our original mind is like that ground. Originally, it is empty, without fixed form or content. But this emptiness doesn't mean it is void or lacking. On the contrary, it is a fullness within emptiness, overflowing with limitless potential. So when our mind encounters the mind ground encounters the sensory conditions, various thoughts, emotions, feelings arise. So the mind ground is inherently free from disturbance, delusion, and wrongdoing, but these arise in response to the sensory condition. This is the very principle of our mind. Although the mind is originally empty and serene, it also contains within it the seeds of infinite potential and dynamic energy. So now consider the nature of the soil. The richer and more fertile the soil, the more it produces both crops and weeds. In the same way, the richer and more vibrant our mind, the more it will produce, both positive and negative thoughts, desires, emotions, etc. But this is not something to be feared or avoided. The various thoughts and feelings that arise are not inherently good or bad. What truly matters is how we choose to engage with them, how we use the arising mind and direct them. So if we come to dislike or resist the thoughts and feelings naturally arise within us, it's just like want to change the fertile soil to lifeless dead ground. A dead ground does not produce weeds, but neither does it yield crops. Similarly, a healthy, vibrant mind will naturally experience a wide range of emotions, thoughts, and feelings. What is important is to understand this original emptiness, original emptiness, and to cultivate the ability to observe, to observe, manage, and skillfully direct these thoughts and feelings. So meditation is the practice that we can experience the mind ground. We can experience the emptiness. As we deepen our awareness through meditation, we develop the ability to pause at the moment of encountering sensory conditions. This pause is crucial because it gives us the space to think rather than merely reacting out of habit or impulse. So most of our mistakes and suffering arise because we fail to observe the thoughts and feelings that arise within us. We didn't have the time to pause and aware the emptiness and react. On the contrary, we just react by our habits and patterns and impulse. Then it often leads to many mistakes. So let's think about how the mind arises along with a sensory condition. So let me give you a simple example. So when I'm just walking the street without any thought, just walking street, but all of a sudden I happen to see a Lamborghini on the street, and I think it's nice car, right? So before seeing the car, my mind was calm and no thought. But when my eye, the subject, meet the car, the object, the sensory condition, when it meets, one mind arise. It's nice car. Or it can go on and on. Oh, I jealous of the owner, or I wish I could work hard and buy the car, etc. But the point is, even we think our mind is always filled with something, and we tend to think our arising mind is our mind. But in reality, before the arising mind, there was the pure and serene emptiness. But when our sixth sense organ, thought, meet some object, our subject meet the object, the sensory condition, there the mind arises. So in our daily lives, we encounter countless sensory conditions. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So it brings you happiness, pain, sadness, anger, disappointment, frustration, all those emotions and thoughts. So when facing these sensory conditions, instead of thinking it as my mind and take it just to truth or absolute, one step back and pause and try to return to the mind ground, the original mind, where before the mind arrives. From there, we can think more clearly and lead to better action. So let me share one example from my experience. A few months ago in the winter, one day I gave a ride to my daughter. She's 10 years old, at the time, first grade. So usually when I give her a ride, I didn't pay much attention about where I'm gonna drop her off, pull off my car because there's a line and it's kind of a cul-de-sac. So if you go a little bit further, but still it's just walking distance and it's fine to go to the entrance, no problem. But on that day, it was heavy rain, pouring. So I had the thought, I wish I could drop her off as close as possible to the entrance so that she could avoid the heavy rain. So with that mind, I drove. And then while I was waiting the line, I was thought about that. And then luckily it happened to be there was one spot just right in front of the entrance. So I just focused on that and then I'm lucky. So as soon as I pulled my car, pulled up my car, I told my daughter, get up here, it's a nice spot. But as soon as she opened the car door, I noticed there was big puddle in the paveway, the sidewalk. And I wanted to warning her, so I was about to say stop, but she already stepped onto the puddle and soaking her shoes. But my daughter said it's okay, and she entered the school. But after that, my mind became disturbed. I felt the coldness in my feet and through my body. And first, I began with my worry. I worried about her. If, what if she could get a cold because of that? What if she's sick? And then what if? And then that led me to self-blaming. How stupid I am to pull up my daughter in that puddle of the water, middle of the puddle. Why you should be aware, more cautious about the other situation. Keep self-blaming. Then for a moment, the train of thoughts is keep going and going and going. So I stopped and breathed for a while. And then I remembered my mantra, originally free from, originally free from. So before this happened, my mind was calm or at least not disturbed at all. But when my daughter stepped into the puddle, my mind became so disturbed. So I stopped and then give some moment with the breathing and remember the mantra, originally free from. Then with the space, I thought more clearly. So what's the benefit of thinking about the mistake and self-blaming? The only way maybe I could go back to the time back and then park another place. That's the only solution. But it's already happened. There's nothing I can do. But what's the point of blaming myself? And keep thinking. Maybe it led to another car accident or something if I keep thinking about that. So with that pause and awareness and with the mantra originally free from, that give me the power and the space to cut the train of thought and cutting the negative thought, and then let it go. So that's uh, one of the example from my own experience. And this is a uh, simple, simple example, but in real practice, it's not easy to realize it. So when we encounter sensory conditions, even we have this knowledge, and once you heard from me, or I'm sure you already heard a lot of times about this essential dhammas of daily practice again and again and again. Why? Because this is the essence of our teaching. So even though I didn't listen to your talk a lot, but I assume many gyomnims already talk about this topic. But from another perspective, that much is important and not easy to put into practice. So we need to, that's why Master Stan used the term training, not just practice, because we need to repeat it again and again and again with trial and errors. Then getting, we have more space and more awareness. So when we encounter some difficult situations and sensory conditions, rather than just following the arising thought, let's try to stop for a moment, whether using the mantra and taking account numbers or just focus on breathing. Just give it 5 to 10 seconds. It gives us a lot of space for us to think wisely rather than reacting impulsively or habitually. So I hope we could use this practice in our daily lives so that we can improve our life and practice better and live a happier life. Thank you.